2 lessons from hashtag Star Trek Day 2023 and an unboxing. Yes, today on Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you right here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and via Trekland Treks. Yeah, for some clarity, sanity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek. And a happy Tuesday to everyone. My goodness, how we're coming up on 7 years of doing this. Well, 6.5 anyway. Been here a while, and the landscape just keeps evolving, doesn't it? Hope everybody is having a great Tuesday. Glad you're back with us. This is some topic for this week, right? Did you have a good Star Trek day? Did it feel a little? I mean, this was my topic last week, but it was on the front end of Star Trek Day because it's been a Star Trek Day like no other. On Friday the 8th, of course, it's the anniversary of the opening of the premiere, the very first premiere of Star Trek back in the day. If you're going to have a birthday for a whole franchise, you mark it to the first time. You could argue, look, for all the folks that say, well, it should start with those 2 days earlier that we forget about in Canada. I don't know. What about marking it from the filming or the writing of The Cage back in 1964? See, it's problematic. We just settle on a day and go with it. And it's the one day that means the most to the most people. This year it was Friday, but this year was a year like no other since the studio kind of ginned up making it a day beyond just which the cool kids know to look at each other and say, happy Star Trek anniversary. But then that's what social media does, right? It gins everything up for good and for bad. But no, this was a studio concept to make it a marketing day. And that's cool. That's cool. First Contact Day, nothing else, nobody else can claim that but Star Trek. And so, yeah, we've got 2 good ones. Maybe another one if Fleet Day takes off, Pioneer Day, whatever it was. We just need to agree on the day, I think. No, Star Trek Day, big thing. But trouble, since they began it, they only had 2 or 3 years out of the slot to build it up. And then we had pandemic, and then we had virtual events taking over, and then live, and then hybrids. And this year, it's the strike. So that's what was interesting. And that was our topic last week. If you didn't catch us last week, go back. It's up there now. Why this Star Trek Day was unlike any other in history, such as it is. But now we're on the other end of Star Trek Day. And two things were interesting. Number one, as much as I'm sure the corporate marketeers wish there hadn't been a strike going because it interfered with, well, we'd have shows happening and filming right now too. But just as far as the narrow window of Star Trek Day, we'd have a lot more going. We'd probably have virtual panel. We didn't have a live show. If you take away the actors and then you take away the showrunners and the writers, you take away all that, you don't have much left to have as an entertainment property. Thank God this turned out to be the 50th anniversary of the animated series. Cool. Totally worth celebrating as an anniversary. Thank goodness that the animated series per se weren't wrapped up in being covered by the SAG-AFTRA strike and by the WGA strike, the Writers Guild strike. Now, number one, it should have been, because the writers especially don't deserve to have second-class deals and options, especially now in this golden age of animation. It should have been, but it wasn't. So, okay, you fell through the crack. That was a doable thing. And it really allowed us at least to have that special celebration for the 50th. Even though I know, all the hoopla on the side about are we marking, which arm of Paramount Global is marking it? If it's legal or if it's streaming, no mention of Prodigy. If it's the marketing, if it's the license and branding side, sure, Prodigy's in there. Prodigy's in on the big picture. We're all hoping for it helped focus the spotlight on all these issues. But what really happened, because it was not, and this is lesson 1 from Star Trek Day. This is the one I was expecting-ish, because the strikes were happening, and because that forced a slimmed down version of what they could offer, what the could offer. It, for one thing, led to those live events for the Lower Decks premiere. So yay, that was and a lot of people that went to it was a great experience. It's a great experience to get back with fans still post-pandemic, and to have it be for Lower Decks is a treat, and all the tchotchkes and the freebies, and people reporting in. I heard from Jesse Gender about the San Diego site, and everybody kind of made up and made their own little Prodigy protest, not taking away from Lower Decks at all, but just made sure that hashtag Save Star Trek Prodigy was in the zeitgeist out there. So it was cool. That was an event. Yay. But obviously, what they could put on and showing Strange New Worlds on terrestrial CBS, I meant to look at the ratings to see if there was any blip at all for them. But those were how you backfill the holes left by not being able to use live people. Your stars and the people were already trying to get on stage, the writers, showrunners at least. Now, what was interesting was the coverage. I want to say I saw more mainstream coverage on the websites, on newspapers especially, and some local stations. Channel 7 here, the ABC affiliate in LA for one reason, see more local coverage of Star Trek Day, which is good for the franchise. You know, it's good for the fan base. It's good to bring people in. But most of all, it got coverage because of the strikes. Those pickets, the Star Trek Day special picket, the space franchise show being struck, because it's not the show, it's the studio. Nobody has a thing against well, we can critique the series, but it's the studio and the show. And if not for the actions of those like Michelle Hurd, the cast within would all be the fly-by-cat, willing casualties, willing to do this for a cause, but still in the big picture, letting a Star Trek Day go by. No, there was more attention paid to Star Trek Day this year, and I think it's because of the strikes and the pickets. Well, if, God forbid, the strike be done in a year and we go back to a normal Star Trek Day, will there be as much ink and paper and digital ink and video framage spent on this? I don't know. And the fact that at first there wasn't to be a New York picket there in Broadway or in Manhattan at the Paramount building, the current Paramount building. But those doing the SAG-AFTRA local election hadn't intended to do one. Folks from Writers Guild stepped up. I don't know. I saw Akiva out there. Maybe, I don't know. But there was a coordinated picket in New York. So yay, both coasts, 2.5 hours, both places. But it grabbed the news. And when you put the star power faces out there, George and Jerry, and go down the line, I know that's what draws the cameras. And at least this time, as unlike May, the actors were on strike and they weren't just sympathetic in solidarity. And there's nothing wrong with solidarity. Yay, Star Trek. Star Trek Strike Snack Squad came up with the buttons as well as a special array of food. You can read all about that too. You know, Claire was on with us, last week? Yeah. The strikes brought more attention to Star Trek Day than the planned Star Trek events and activities. Now, you could say there would have been more activity had there not been a strike, but the way it worked out, it may have been the most coverage. I don't know. What do you all think? Do you feel like? It feels like, even knowing that I'm sensitive to it because I'm watching for it, even knowing that I'm turned on to it, it felt like there was more coverage online as well as with local stations, local coverage, YouTube clips from local stations, packages feed that even local news stations could run if they were far from New York or LA, the SoCal area. So that was one lesson. It was like, I don't know, maybe those studio network promotion marketeers ought to be grateful in a weird way for the strikes this year. It got more attention to the franchise. And you know what? In the long run, yes, it's a strike. Yes, you don't want to favor the studio too much, even as you support actors and writers and Gene's vision, of course, all the way down the line. But that was something that occurred to me later. I think this was the most covered Star Trek Day ever. I mean, it's a fluff piece normally, but this year it's tied into something really relevant and good on everybody. Good on John Billingsley and Jonathan Del Arco with Michelle Hurd in tow for having the idea and coming back. I've been hoping, as I said, to have a second round of a Star Trek theme picket, as the writers had done in May, almost as an homage echo of the first go round for socially, accessible on social media the baby days of social media with the 07-08 strike, when Star Trek's Picket Day was one of 3 or 4 that year, and probably the most pronounced franchise, not theme, like the horror writers got together and had a theme picket that day. All I'm saying is it was, it was a big thing. And in hindsight, I'll just say that I knew it would be different than the May because the turnout would probably 3 or 4 times. Fans were actively solicited for this. I've said this once or twice, other platforms. The fans were solicited for this, unlike before when there was some concern about it being an overflow and not wanting to have it be a convention atmosphere. Well, you know what? It's been 3-4 months now. Everybody is tuned into the issues. People get it. We see the strikers. We watch the social media. I hope you were following your Star Trek folks. Carlos Cisco, Bill Wolkoff, well, Jerry, obviously, and Michelle Hurd. All kinds of folks up and down the line, writers. And people are savvy. People are educated. Not just us, but a lot of mainstream America. They get the issues. They see even how far from the old elitist Hollywood thing, which has been blown wide open, when 3/4 of the writers can't qualify for, or actors can't qualify for their health insurance, which has always been an issue, and that there's issues below that of why that is too. But mainstream America, Main Street America, gets the issue and even sees it reflected back in the industries around them. Now we're about to have the auto workers. The UPS strike happened, and they settled and got back up to what they should have been. If there's such necessary workers, what was the term during the pandemic? Essential workers. If they're so essential workers, why don't we, and the country depends on them to function, especially business, why aren't they getting paid more? And that was a case of it was the part-timers not getting gigged to death. No, it's not just the vibe out of the strike has worked. And the producers, the AMPTP, hiring one crisis PR firm after another to try to deflect this and dent that. And at the very least cause dissension. If they can't win the general public, they're going to try to cause dissent. It looks like the producers are already divided between the old school folks who came up with entertainment, the old brick and mortar studios, and all the high tech folk who are totally, as someone the other day was mentioning, the entertainment division is just one sliver of the whole company, and they could care less. It's a nuisance. It's a fly buzzing. So we'll see where that goes. All I'm saying is, one of the lessons I learned here was that it wasn't their playbook, but the marketers are going to have to admit that this year's Star Trek Day got far more attention than it normally does. Not that I want to strike every year to accomplish that. Heavens no. There's people really hurting. And once again, I'm going to urge you, if you have some spare coinage to each of the 2 unions at strike right now has SAG-AFTRA has their foundation. The Writers Guild is supporting the Entertainment Community Fund to help those in need trying to stretch by. There's the Grocer's Green Envelope Fund to get fresh food to not just actors and writers, but the entire industry, the support staff, the assistants, people on crew, the IATSE members, from whether it's the art side of things, the stage crew side of things, and all that detail, the makeup, hairdressers, up in the wardrobe people, up and down the line, people are hurting. And the Teamsters too. And the Teamsters keep honoring these strikes. That's one thing I took away, but here's the other thing. Totally sidebar. I wasn't expecting this. So, yeah, a very short Trek premiered. Didn't exactly, the advance press on it was a little vague. You got the idea if you looked at people involved. Kind of the news coming in advance was that so many actors were voicing characters, were voicing their characters. It was funny, though. Funny to watch, and the anticipation and all that. And seeing some of those advanced stills, the screwhead and the butthead, wondering what the hell was up with that, because the animation was done just fine. It turns out that now we have a whole debate about the fact that we're daring to put Star Trek on something and it's not canon. Now, look, you're talking to somebody who was there before we had the word canon. We just talked about continuity. You're talking about somebody who's been retconning before we had retconning. That's why I called it gap filling and canon smoothing now. Smoothing and gap filling. Gap filling isn't about errors or inconsistency. It's about the gaps. Been doing this, kid, since my first blush with Star Trek. That's one of the things that attracted me to it, was keeping track of all this stuff. This needs to be organized. and it's why I did the concordance. It's why I worked on my original star charts. It's why I wound up getting to do the TNG companion and yada yada. And then the companion world to that is the making of, the behind the scenes. One's in universe, one's not, but you're getting at the same issues. No, folks, when I finally saw Skin a Cat, there's actually a sidebar to this, but primarily people are losing their shorts because it's silly. Yeah. Basically, Very Short Trek is going to be an animated Saturday Night Live sketch. It's going to basically be, forget calling Lower Decks the Adult Swim of Star Trek. Very Short Treks is the Adult Swim of Star Trek. Or again, it's like an animated sketch for Saturday Night Live. How many parodies of Star Trek and Next Generation is Saturday Night Live produced? With guest stars, with different folks playing the original cast. My God, Jim Belushi's Kirk. So that's all it is. It's got a name, Very Short Treks. We've seen the one. There are 5 more to come. It's cool that the actors got to do the animation, whether or not it was fine strike-wise, before or after the actual strike. It's clear. Jerry O'Connell did his live hosting the special, by the way, ahead of strike time. And yes, that's how far ahead they work. It's only been three months. Hey, it's corporate timetables, gang. This stuff is worked on way ahead of time. Because, what else could it be but just in a vacuum? What's going to change in 3, 4, 5 months? I was really eye-rolly at seeing the reaction. Now, if you didn't know what to expect, and maybe it's not your style of humor, that's fine. That's fine. It harks back to the trouble with Edward. In fact, including the DNA. If you looked at the DNA of things, you would have got it that Casper Kelly, Too Many Crooks. All right. It's bold, silly. The stars, the actors, I'm sure had a hoot doing it. But no, it's like the Tribbles cereal commercial, even outdoing the trouble with Edward at the end of that. And he was involved with that too. So no, you don't have to think. Look, gang, this is marketing. I'm not concerned about this messing a canon because it's not canon. It's parody. This doesn't mess with canon any more than a Saturday Night Live Star Trek sketch. It's in this. It's just now the home studio is making it, not depending on outside groups, right? There's no Second City going on here. There's no improv comedy. There's no Lorne Michaels. This is the home folks overseeing it. And kudos. Of all the things that people have criticized Alex Kurtzman over the years, and I think the list is going down as time goes by, this shouldn't be one of them. Look, the bottom line is this is going to get eyeballs. I hope it does. This is going to get fresh eyeballs from all the folks who thought that Star Trek, I don't know, the Gen Zers who thought that it was not too cool for school. This is for everybody who gave up on it along the way. This is for folks who have no clue to Star Trek and it's woke. I mean, whatever. These are wacky. At least I hope they're all wacky. I hope they're all in the same vein. It looks like they will be. But this uproar about they're not canon, that's not the point. The point is to get more people to watch Star Trek. And look, right now, when there's nothing new being made, when this run of Lower Decks is gone, it's gone until they decide to show the Discovery being held back in a can sometime next spring. The strike is going to delay all this. And you know what? What better alternate? If people are actually sucked in and intrigued by watching one of these, they have to get it that it's parody. They have to get it that it's a little satire, that it's a poke. But what's the best adjacent show right now to be showing? Not the Elysian Kingdom. No, Lower Decks is on. So if you're an anime intrigue, if you're anime curious, then it's adjacent. It's right there. Bang. So it's great timing. But leave it to Star Trek fans to get all blown up over the fact that this wasn't canon. It's not the point. It's not the point. If Saturday Night Live was on CBS and they did a sketch, did a parody Are people going to yell that it's the home of Star Trek and they shouldn't be allowed to do that? What? No. Kids, the fact that there are parody sketches on SNL and other places means that it's culturally relevant and relevant. It's pop culturally relevant. Remember, I'm sorry, 10, 12 years ago, you said Star Trek, you were a tight little community. You said Star Trek at San Diego Comic-Con, you might see 6 people cosplaying Trek. Probably girls in red miniskirt Uhura dresses. I mean, that was probably about as much as you could get. It was like a throwback to 19. I'm just saying, we've come a long way in bringing it back. Things like this are what not only are helpful to bring people in, but they're also a barometer to show where we are. And Star Trek is back, baby. Even as Star Wars and Marvel and DC and Harry Potter, even as all of the other franchises of the last decade wobble, Star Trek is actually surging here a little bit. Not that it's a race, not that it's a contest. I'm just saying. Every year, the last 2 or 3 years, having this much Star Trek out there for somebody to enjoy some part of it is leading to an increased awareness, exposure, appearance, visibility of Star Trek out there. And Very Short Treks is just piling on to that. Oh, get over yourselves, people. It is what it is. I'm not going to do a concordance for Very Short Treks. For one thing, there are going to be disjointed stories, just like the regular short treks. This is a perfect format for it. This is hysterical. I might write a guidebook. But no, not an encyclopedia, not a concordance. It's not canon, but it exists. It exists just as much as any of the made behind the scenes aspects of Star Trek, the sidebars do. So the 2 things I learned from Star Trek Day this year were, boy, you better be glad for that strike this year in the big picture for bringing with an awareness on the meta level. Both of these, I should have said 2 meta lessons I learned. One, you want to get out to more people. You want to expand the fan base. If you're going to have a strike, lead with it. And number 2, you should be pumping these out. Very short. Well, not too many. Too many, you lose the flavor, the specialists, I know. It'd be like being able to watch The Wizard of Oz anytime, not just once a year. No, something like Very Short Treks is exactly what we need to break the snooty poo barrier and keep expanding the fan base. All right, what do you think? Did I pump up? Did I get you rolling? But hey, if you're watching me later on YouTube, why can't you come by? Find some time on a Tuesday to come by and watch us live. I do this in the afternoon so the global folks can see it. So yeah, if you're on other continents, you can still get yourself here at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern, 9 European UK time, and 10 Central Europe. Before you go, I did promise you a part 2 today. We have a small tag for today's show. Not that small. Guess what? We have an unboxing to do. I know this is not the way you normally unbox it, but mine was a little slow arriving, but we fixed that. I know some of you who are keeping up with things know what's going on here. This is, yes, ta-da, it's the Season 3 Blu-ray, DVD, and Steelbook for Picard Season 3. And yeah, if ever there was a season of Star Trek, if ever there's a title that you videophiles, that you discophiles wanted to get in on, it would be Star Trek Season 3. The Venn diagram for who's buying this. It's going to be the audience. But no, it's amazing. Look, as you say right here, certified, okay, Rotten Tomatoes fresh. 2.5 hours of special bonus features, of course. Yeah, you've got comment. There's deleted scenes. There's already been a little kerfluffle about a little 3-5 second flyby to finish off, to finish things off with. It's thrilling and a hell of a ride. I don't know. Do you really have to pet? Of course, the gag reel is already out on YouTube. I don't know about that. That's kind of wacky. This is the Blu-ray. So the Steelbook has the black cover. Very cool. There was criticism of some of the promotional artwork not having Shaw, which I get it. In fact, we got asked that the other day. Why isn't Shaw in the promotional artwork? These things are done, again, months in advance. I don't know if people didn't see Todd Stashwick's character take off the way it did. It was a pleasant surprise. But anyway, basically the general qualities there. The audio is mixed. It sounds good. It looks good. The commentaries, here's what you get. The Next Generation, the original first episode is Frakes, Jerry Ryan, Todd, Ed Spaliers, Terry himself, and the composer, Steve Barton, are there. My gosh, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 episodes. Half the season has commentary with it, which is great. Gates, Michelle, and Terry on 17 Seconds. No Win Scenario, Jonathan, Todd, and Terry. The Bounty at the Fleet Museum, Jonathan, LeVar, Brent, and Terry. And Last Generation, you know what? They've got all actors. Now and Terry. That's fine, but yes, there is a bonus feature here about rebuilding the Enterprise D. It's Alex and it's Terry. They've got Dave Blass and Liz Koslowski and Todd, all of whom we've been thrilled to have on Portal 47. A lot of you have seen them at conventions. If you were at Vegas, you got to see them. Preserved, I'm so happy for them and their work to be preserved forever, at least on this DVD, the mass distribution of this. There's a lot of writers and producers and directors and crew interviewed for the making of the season. There's the blooper reel, the gag reel, as we say now. The industry word took out over the fan word. There's the panel that my friend Scott hosted in LA at the For Your Consideration that they've got on here also. A whole bit about Amanda Plummer and Vadic and Terry writing her villainous Vadic. And then just the whole thing about the reunion of the original cast and all of that. There's a few deleted scenes. Well, several, I guess, half dozen or more here. You know what? The CBS Blu-rays, the Paramount Global Blu-rays have been pretty consistent, especially in recent years. This one is more about the content than it is about the features itself. And what more can we say of all the recent years to get people excited and generate a hashtag campaign for a whole new series? Okay, well, we're doing it again. This is it. So, hey, thanks, Paramount. Thanks, CBS. They're still out there. It's selling really well. I haven't checked the numbers lately, but it's there. And as we have seen, looking at you, Prodigy, with sad eyes, but people have been shaken lately about what they always feel like they're going to have access to. Even things like bonus features, if you think it's out there, it was in the ready room, it was wherever, that was studio produced, might not always be there. So if ever there was a time to overlap your basic, I should have physical media, and this is the season I would want, this is the season you would want. All right. It's been out for a few days now, since the 5th. It's been out for a week, but no time like the present, if you have not made up your mind. All right. I can't wait there's a couple of things I specifically want to get to. And I know the rest of the world has had it for a week, but there's all kinds of folks. There are folks who put off seeing Nemesis the first weekend, and then it was gone the next weekend. It was perceived of as a bomb and yanked with a competitive slate back in 2002. So you look at the box office for Nemesis, and I know I've totally changed gears on you here, but this is my point. It's not about, the early bird gets the worm. It's just that there will always be middle of the morning birds, and there will be afternoon birds, and there will be midnight shift birds. So it's never too late to get your copy. Just make sure that you've got one so that at some point something wacky happens and your favorite seasons, including this one, suddenly aren't as accessible as they used to be because of some future wacko tech Wall Street thing. Tax break. Yeah. Get it now. All right. That's what I wanted to say. Because if there was ever a season to have on disc, it would be this season, as many people have been proclaiming all along. And you know what? If there was ever a time now that the days are not quite as boiling hot to visit LA and maybe get in your own away team, TreklandTreks.com. You know what's happening. I'll work with you. You have your favorite scenes. Maybe you've been to Vasquez Rocks. Maybe you want to get to one of the other 50 places around LA that you can do and re-experience Star Trek for yourself, your very own away mission. Well, get with me. We'll work it out when you come to LA. I can't wait. Can't wait. TreklandTreks.com. And of course, our live wires. Can't forget you guys. Thank you so much. Diana Hopkins, Lawrence Todd, Justin Porteous, Chris Jiggins, Comedy Forecast, Robin Wilson, Anne-Marie Siegel, Galinda Bruton, Pranakasha Productions, and Andrew Jazimski. Thank you so much for being a TTLer. And our live wires, boom, Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Hubbard Gunn Johnson, Alan Howency, Dave Gregory, Tobias Rex, Donna S. Runyon, and Casey Shafsky. We're getting on, well, we're midway through the month. This is collected once a month. I want to thank all of you. We've gradually been expanding what we're doing here and what the scope of everything online Trekland is. If you hadn't noticed, you want to go over and like and subscribe here on YouTube for sure. Meanwhile, you can check out the Patreon. Mine, I keep it simple. Some folks is more extensive. Some folks, a lot more of their income comes from Patreon. I'm trying to keep this simple to broaden the base. There you go, $5 or $10. The $10 folks get the shout out plus access to earlier behind the scenes interviews from the earlier years of Portal 47. We're going to be starting our 8th year. The open house is coming soon. That's open to the entire world. We always have a notable Trek person. You want to stay tuned for when we announce the date and then our guest for that sometime in the next couple of months. Meanwhile, here, patreon.com/Trekland Live is the place where you can jump in and you can throw in more if you want to, but I'm keeping it simple just so more can take part. I appreciate all of that. And yes, we are still on hiatus. We just started our hiatus. So we're taking a break on the Trek Files, but there are 10 seasons up there, 10 times 24, 240 episodes now of the Trek File. And it's all right there. Facebook is where the files are too, but you can find it wherever good podcasts are sold or captured, I should say. And podcast.roddenberry.com is where all the Roddenberry family of podcasts are. There is a new one, Genealogy, looking at we've done this a little bit on the Trek Files, but Norm and Earl are going to dive into other Gene Roddenberry projects, some of them you've never heard of, pilots and scripts, and some of the scripts he won, including, what he wrote for Have Gun Will Travel. They found a historical artifact that no one really knew existed. Gene had a series. He had a series before The Lieutenant. It was forgotten in the files because it was videotaped. The tapes were wiped, but they found the receipts. They found the script and the writer's guide. Wrangler. Yes, it is. Check it out. That is Genealogy. That's another Roddenberry podcast. Or, of course, you can go back and find a Trek file that you missed. Hey, everybody, I'm here. Don't leave us if you're going to be live. But if you're leaving us right now, I'm here on Trekland. Larry Nemecek at Twitter. Larry Nemecek's Trekland here on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things. Same thing on Instagram. And same thing on Facebook too. Instagram is a lot of fun, I'll just say too. Portal47.net is how you can join us all year long. No need for the post-con blues wherever you live, wherever you are in this world. We've got global members. And actually, tomorrow is European and Midday America's Ask Dr. Trek Roundtable Day in the portal. So all the portales, I love getting the global view. That's what I help bring here to you. And of course, a lot of you are in the chat today, and we're going to get there in just a second. So if you're leaving me now, if you're watching us later on YouTube, try to join us live once again. And if you are leaving us, it's been good to spend this time with you. I'll just say, hey, take care of yourself. Stay healthy, do all the things. Stay woke, check your sources in all the ways. And Trek well.